Hercules hoisted his lion-skin cloak higher, shielding himself from the biting wind that whipped through the Arcadian mountains. Frustration gnawed at him, a dull ache that mirrored the weary throb in his legs. It had been months since Eurystheus, that sniveling king, had tasked him with capturing the Ceryneian Hind. Months of relentless pursuit, of following elusive tracks and whispers through dense forests and desolate valleys. The hind. It wasn't your average deer. Its coat, the color of polished bronze, shimmered in the sunlight. Its hooves barely touched the ground as it glided through the undergrowth, a creature of ethereal grace. Yet, its most formidable attribute was its speed. It could outrun an arrow in flight, a fact that gnawed at Hercules' pride. He, the son of a god, bested by a mere deer? He remembered the smirk on Eurystheus' face when he laid out the task. The king, a pale shadow of a man constantly threatened by Hercules' burgeoning fame, clearly hoped this impossible feat would either lead to the hero's demise or the wrath of Artemis, the fierce goddess who held the hind sacred. The thought of facing Artemis' legendary archery was a sobering one. Still, Hercules wouldn't back down. He wouldn't give Eurystheus the satisfaction. There were whispers, of course. Fragments of information gleaned from weathered shepherds tending their flocks, tales spun by mischievous nymphs who reveled in the hero's predicament. The hind, they said, roamed freely in the heart of the mountains, a creature as wild and untamed as the land itself. But capturing it? Not a chance. Hercules wasn't easily discouraged. He spent days traversing treacherous slopes, his keen eyes searching for any sign of the elusive deer. He learned the language of the wind, how it rustled through the leaves, carrying with it the faintest whisper of hoofsteps. He studied the tracks left in the damp earth, deciphering the patterns, the direction the quarry had taken. Slowly, a picture began to form. The hind wasn't aimlessly wandering. It followed a well-worn path, a loop that snaked its way through the most treacherous parts of the mountain range. This realization sparked a change in Hercules' strategy. He abandoned the brute force approach, the desperate dashes through the undergrowth in the hope of catching a glimpse of the magnificent creature. Instead, he became a shadow, a patient observer. He learned the rhythm of the mountains, the habits of the animals that shared its slopes. He befriended a stoic eagle, its keen eyes becoming his own, scouting ahead for any sign of the elusive prey. Days bled into weeks, then months. Fatigue gnawed at him, etching lines on his face and a permanent ache in his bones. His once immaculate beard grew wild, tangled with twigs and leaves. But his spirit remained unbroken. Every sunrise brought renewed determination, every sunset a silent vow to complete the task. Then, one crisp autumn morning, as frost painted the leaves silver and turned the air crisp, a stroke of luck emerged. Hercules, following the faint trail of the deer, stumbled upon a hidden clearing. In its center stood Chiron, the wise centaur and tutor of heroes. Chiron, recognizing the hero on his face etched with exhaustion and determination, offered him a warm fire, a hearty meal, and most importantly, a piece of crucial information. "The Ceryneian Hind," Chiron said, his voice a soothing rumble, "is no ordinary creature. It possesses the speed of the wind itself. But even a divine being needs rest. Track it, young Hercules, but don't chase it. When it finally stops to graze, that will be your opportunity." Hope, a flicker he hadn't felt in months, ignited within Hercules. He thanked Chiron profusely and with renewed vigor, set off once more. This time, however, he wasn't following fleeting tracks. He was hunting a pattern, a moment of vulnerability in the otherwise tireless beast. The chase continued. But it was a different chase now. It was a dance of patience, of following the rhythm of the mountains, of waiting for the right moment. Days turned into weeks, the landscape changing from snow-capped peaks to dense, sun-dappled forests. The chase took him across Greece, through Thrace, and even to the fabled land of the Hyperboreans at the edge of the known world. It was a grueling trek, a test of his physical and mental fortitude. Yet Hercules persevered. Finally, after a year of relentless pursuit, a year of sleeping under the stars and surviving on whatever the land provided, it happened. As the first rays of dawn kissed the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, the impossible happened. The Ceryneian Hind, exhausted from its year-long flight, stopped to graze in a hidden meadow bathed in the ethereal glow of the rising sun. Hercules, his heart pounding in his chest, froze. This was it. The culmination of a year's worth of sweat, toil, and unwavering focus. He crouched low behind a massive oak, his breath coming out in ragged gasps. The sight that greeted him was breathtaking. The hind, its bronze coat gleaming in the morning light, grazed peacefully on a patch of fresh wildflowers. Its antlers, like polished ivory, reached towards the sky, each tine a testament to its otherworldly beauty. But the hero knew his time was limited. The moment the deer sensed any danger, it would vanish into the dense forest that bordered the meadow. He needed to act, and fast. But how? Hurting the sacred animal was out of the question. He wouldn't risk the wrath of Artemis, the goddess who held the hind dear. Suddenly, a memory surfaced from his training days with Chiron. The centaur had spoken of the Nemean lion, a beast with an impenetrable hide, and how he had used its own arrogance to overpower it. Could he employ a similar strategy with the hind? With a newfound calmness, Hercules began to inch closer, moving with the silent grace of a predator. He used the natural features of the landscape, fallen logs, rocky outcrops as cover, all the while keeping his eyes fixed on the magnificent creature. The closer he got, the more he saw the toll the year-long chase had taken on the hind. Its movements, though still graceful, lacked the effortless agility he had witnessed before. He was within a stone's throw when a twig snapped under his foot. The sound, barely audible in the stillness of the morning, seemed to echo through the meadow. The hind's head snapped up, its golden eyes locking with his. Time seemed to slow down. In that frozen instant, Hercules held his breath, fearing the worst. But instead of bolting, the hind did something unexpected. It didn't show fear, but a flicker of recognition? Perhaps, in the exhaustion of its year-long flight, it had come to understand the relentless pursuit it had endured. Or maybe in the depths of those golden eyes, Hercules saw a flicker of respect for his unwavering determination. Whatever the reason, the hind didn't flee. It stood its ground, its head held high, its magnificent antlers silhouetted against the rising sun. This was his chance. Slowly, carefully, Hercules rose to his full height. He didn't raise his club, didn't make any threatening gestures. Instead, he spoke, his voice hoarse from disuse but filled with respect. "Magnificent creature," he said, his words carrying on the crisp morning air. "I have followed you for a year, across mountains and valleys. You have tested my strength, my patience, and my resolve. I come not to harm you, but to fulfill a task laid upon me by a jealous king." He paused, letting his words sink in. The hind remained still, its gaze unwavering. "Allow me to return you to your sanctuary," he continued, taking a step forward, "and I promise you will never be bothered again." The tension remained, thick and palpable. But then, to Hercules' immense relief, the hind did something extraordinary. It took a single step forward, then another, until it stood mere feet away from the hero. It lowered its head slightly, as if offering itself for inspection. Hercules felt a wave of relief wash over him. He reached out a tentative hand, his palm open, devoid of any threat. The hind twitched its nose, the soft fur tickling his fingers. Then, with a surprising gentleness, it nudged his hand with its head. In that moment, a silent pact was formed. The chase was over, not with a struggle, but with a show of mutual respect. Hercules, with a newfound respect for the magnificent creature, gently placed his hands on its back, careful not to cause any discomfort. The hind didn't flinch. It seemed to understand, to accept its temporary capture. The journey back to Mycenae, however, was far from over. He knew the wrath of Artemis still loomed. As he emerged from the mountains, the air shimmered and the leaves rustled ominously. A figure materialized before him, Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, her face a mask of fury, materialized before him. Her silver bow gleamed in the sunlight, an arrow nocked and ready. The air crackled with tension, the silence broken only by the frantic beating of Hercules' heart. "You dare capture my sacred creature?" she boomed, her voice echoing through the valley. Rage simmered in her eyes, a storm threatening to break. Hercules, ever the diplomat, lowered himself to one knee, the captured hind standing calmly beside him. He explained the task laid upon him by Eurystheus, the king's jealousy, and his year-long pursuit driven by unwavering determination. He spoke of his respect for the hind and his promise to return it unharmed. As he spoke, a flicker of understanding crossed Artemis' face. The goddess, though fierce, was also just. She saw the truth in Hercules' words, the weariness etched on his face a testament to his ordeal. With a sigh, she lowered her bow, the tension dissipating like mist in the morning sun. "Very well, son of Zeus," she said, her voice regaining its composure. "You have shown remarkable perseverance and respect for the creature under your care. But know this," her voice hardened once more, a warning laced with her words. "The wild things are not meant to be tamed. This act of capture, though born of necessity, will have consequences you may not foresee." A shiver ran down Hercules' spine. Artemis' words were cryptic, a veiled threat hanging in the air. He didn't fully understand the consequences she spoke of, but the weight of her warning settled upon him. He had captured the Ceryneian Hind, but in doing so, he had perhaps upset a delicate balance, a harmony between the wild and the tamed. Little did he know, Artemis' words held the seeds of a future trial, a labor that would test his strength and ingenuity in ways he couldn't even imagine. The capture of the Ceryneian Hind, a seemingly straightforward task, had become a turning point, setting him on a collision course with the wrath of a goddess and a mythical creature known as the Erymanthian boar, a monstrous beast that would challenge him like never before. Thank you for watching. Please comment below what you would like to see next.